Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. I have a very fun, exciting video today. Pen friend Georgia, all the way in Australia, sent me 19 inks and I am super excited to film them for you guys because there are quite a few that I've never seen or tried before. So without further ado, let me get to my swatching page here. As for supplies, I have my Sterling Ink A5 notebook here with the Sanzen Tomoe River paper. I will be using my Olive Frogs Designs sample vial holder. I have a t-shirt as a towel, my dropper, a little stamp block that's acrylic, and then my Sailor Hokkoro dip pen with the fude nib, and then a couple of jars of water. She did kindly send me a whole packet of descriptions for these, but I'm gonna save this for myself, and I'm just gonna kind of give you guys my interpretation, although I do love what Georgia put down in here. So thank you so much, Georgia, for sending all of this lovely info about the inks. It's really, really cool. But the first one I'm gonna go ahead and swatch, and these are in no particular order, is Sailor's Ink Studios 464. And I've actually used this ink before. I already have this one in my collection, but it is seriously a gorgeous, gorgeous teal color. It has lovely shading and a tiny bit of a red sheen to it as well, and writes really, really great. My initial writing of this, I didn't put enough ink on the nib, so that's why it was kind of skipping a little bit. But overall, this is a really great teal colored ink if you like this sort of color, and it's a very neutral teal in that it fits pretty firmly between green and blue, so it has a nice balance. The next ink she sent me is another teal, and this is another one that I actually really adore, and this is Aurora Borealis by Diamine. And I was first introduced to this teal by another pen friend, Priscilla. She sent me a sample, and I really, really loved the shade of this. It's a bit deeper, a bit more, I'd say, legible. In Georgia's letter, she actually mentioned this was the first bottle of ink she ever got, and I think this is a 100% great choice for a first bottle of ink, especially if you like to write with color. The flow of this ink is fantastic. The color is really great. It has little bits of properties that pop through here and there, and it's just overall a really great ink. And if my ink history kind of, is correct, I believe this one is from the Reddit group on fountain pen Reddit, like the fountain pen Reddit thread. This is one of the inks that Diamine did for Reddit, and that they chose this color based on the vote from there. Next up, we have a Robert Oster ink, and this is Motor Oil. And this ink is a lovely dark brown, almost brown black in some areas. It actually looks like spilled motor oil, like if you've never changed the oil in your car and it gets this kind of grimy blackish brown color. That's exactly what this looks like. I think the sheen on this one's really pretty too. It doesn't always come through on the new Sanzen paper from my experience, so we'll see once this one dries if we do get any of the black sheen that this ink has. But flow wise, this is a beautiful Robert Oster ink, and another one that I've played with quite a lot, and I'm really happy to have more because my old sample was definitely running out. Next up, she sent me another Robert Oster ink, and this one is called Sydney Darling Harbor, and in her letter she mentioned that this one is based off of I guess the colors of the water by the Sydney Harbor, if I read that correctly. So this will be an interesting one, and I have not tried this one before. Okay, wow, first impressions of this ink is just love, 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 love. It's reminding me a lot of one of the Airbend inks in that it's kind of like the the Verdigris, or I think it's maybe 𝗦𝘃𝗽𝗆. It's like a dusty gray teal, and it looks like it's gonna have a little bit of shading, but I'll wait till it totally dries to describe all the properties. But color wet right now is a beautiful, nice, dusty gray teal. Really love this one actually, and if this is the color of the water in Australia, I think I'd still get in it even if I got eaten by some, crazy creature. Next up, she sent me Robert Oster's Romeo and Juliet. And in George's letter, she specifically wants me to compare this one to Robert Oster's Wind. So I'm going to do my best. Wet-wise, this ink is a little bit lighter than Robert Oster Wind. It's more of a soft gray light blue, whereas I feel like Robert Oster's Wind is a bit more of like a vibrant baby blue. I'm not sure how this one's going to shade, but it already looks like it's going to shade a little bit while I'm talking while it's drying in front of me. I'm not sure about shading, but we'll talk when it dries. But consistency-wise, it seems to flow really similar to the Wind. Obviously, this isn't going to be a side-by-side comparison, so I'm just kind of like winging it off of my memory, but the color of this is lovely. It seems a bit lighter, a bit more dusty. So if you wanted a blue with a little bit of shading that this one looks like it's going to have, I think this would be great as an alternative to Wind if you wanted it to be a bit more gray leaning than vibrant. Next up, she sent me Dominant Industries Evening. And my goodness, this is definitely a light ink, but the color is so beautiful. It reminds me a lot of like, I guess like lilac petals or like soft floral petals that are like this light purpley color, maybe even like a purple peony. It's a beautiful, lovely light purple. I definitely think this is accurate too for the naming of this, Evening, being that this is kind of like a sunsetty color. It's very, you know, dusk vibes. Like the sun is setting, you're getting that nice kind of lilac pink hue across the horizon. Like it's really pretty, and it does look like it's going to have a bit of shading with this one as well. Lightness wise though, I'm not sure if this is going to be a very legible ink unless you put it in something like a medium to broad to stub nibbed pen, but painting wise, I think this is a fabulous color for florals, and that's probably what I'm going to be using for the most. Next up, she sent me a Colorverse ink, and this is called Hubble. And this is a lovely red color. It looks to have a bit of a blueness to it, a bit more on like the blue side of reds, not so much the orange. So it's a bit deeper, almost like a lighter maroon color in some areas. It's still very red though. I think it's lovely. Flow wise with the dip pen, it was really, really nice. I'm not a huge red ink person, but I do like to use red ink in like Christmas time and then also around Halloween because it's kind of fun to have like a bloody color. And this one's a pretty good, like wet, bright blood, fresh out of the skin kind of color. But it's still a bit pink and also a bit blue in some areas. So interested to see how this one dries down completely. Okay, so this one looks like it's called Wushan Misty Mountain, and she said it's by Collection Traced. And in her letter, she mentioned this is from a Chinese manufacturer, and it's a chroma shader. So let's see what this one looks like. Now, I've never heard of Collection Trace, so I'm kind of excited to play with this one a little bit more, but so far, it is definitely what she said in the letter. It is a chromo shader. The name Wushan Misty Mountain is just giving me like Lord of the Rings Hobbit vibes, and I am 100% here for it. Maybe this can be the color of Gandalf the Grey's hat and cloak before he becomes Gandalf the White. Anyways, this is definitely a lovely color. It reminds me a lot of, I want to say it's Sailor's Yamazakura, or not Sailor's Yamazakura. It's one of the Sailor chroma shader inks. It's not any from the Monyo line though. I want to say it's from the Yoromeku line. Next up, she sent me another Colorverse ink, and this is, I think it's Ganymede or Ganymede. Pronunciation may be a little butchered on this one, but it's Ganymede. And this looks to be another really lovely gray purple. Maybe a bit more purple than gray. We'll see once it dries. Consistency wise though, this one does feel a bit dry, which I find very common to be with the Colorverse inks that are a bit on the lighter side. Not really a problem. It's just, you know, something to note if that's something you care about when it comes to ink. Shading wise, this one does look like it's going to be a shader as well. I think Georgia and I have very similar tastes when it comes to shading inks, and I am 100% here for it. Next up, we have another Ink Studio ink by Sailor, and this is number 173. And I'm going to do kind of a bigger swatch down here of this one because she said this one is another really good chroma shader. And wow, this is a lovely color. I don't know why I've never tried the Sailor Ink Studio ink. I love going through the Sailor Ink Studio line and just kind of picking random ones and seeing what happens. But this one's never been on my radar before, but it is lovely. It has this almost yellow orange to pink look to it already, and it's not even fully dry. I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. I think in a fine to extra fine pen, you may not get a lot of the shading that it's already showcasing, but definitely in a medium to broad to stub nib, you're going to get some of that cool shifts in color. This is beautiful. Base wise, I'd say if it had to be one color without the chroma shading, it's kind of like a coral, like a lighter coral color. I'm going to take a quick break to drink some tea, and this is actually a tea she sent me. It's called Melbourne Breakfast, or Melbourne Breakfast. This is lovely, Georgia. I may have been drinking a lot of it and am already running out, but it's kind of like a black tea with a bit of vanilla taste to it, and I do have a little bit of milk in here, but it is so good. Okay, next up she sent me a Tono and Limbs ink, which I've never tried this brand before, but I've seen it pop up a lot recently, and this one is called Shimane. And wow, this is the lovely, bright, deep pink, maybe hints of magenta in there, kind of got a little bit of a purpleness to it, but it's very deep pink. In Georgia's letter, she described this one as her perfect raspberry color, and I definitely will agree with that. This is a perfect like raspberry candy color. It's beautiful. Flow wise with the dip nib on this Tono and Limbs, I was really happy, actually kind of surprised. It seems to be pretty wet and pretty well flowing. So maybe I need to play around with some more of this brand of inks. She did send me a couple though, so I'm going to try to swatch the next one now. And with that, the next one she sent me is called, I think it's Aichi. And this is from the Prefecture line. And wow, this is purple. Okay, so this is probably like neon purple, neon deep purple. It is lovely. I'm really interested to see how this one looks like dry, because it looks like it's doing something while I'm talking, while it's drying in front of me, but it's really pretty and very vibrant. At least as a wet swatch, it's very vibrant. So we'll see as it dries if it mutes itself a little bit or if it still stays the same vibrancy. That's one thing that I find with a lot of very bright purple inks is they go down really bright, and then as they dry, they kind of soften into more of like a blue. So, we shall see what this one does, but I'm very happy with this color. This is a beautiful purple color. Next up, she sent me another Robert Oster one, and I think this one is an Australian exclusive, if I read her letter right. And this is Melbourne's Tram Green, and she said there's something about a fascination with trams in Australia, so, or maybe just in Melbourne. So let's test this one out. Okay, this is a lovely, grassy, springy green color. Looks like it's going to have a bit of shading to it as well. We all know that I am here for the shading, so thank you, Georgia, for sending so many inks that shade. This makes me so happy. This is lovely. I want to say this reminds me a lot of a 𝗂𝗏 ink or a 𝗂𝗏 ink that I did recently, and I think it's Farm Green. I don't know if I'll be able to compare all of these to their color families, but it definitely reminds me a lot of the 𝗂𝗏 Farm Green from what I remember in my head. This is lovely though, and the flow was really great with the dip pen. I'm wondering what color the trams are now, because she said this is the color of the seats inside the tram, if I got that right. So this is very interesting. Maybe I needed to pay a visit to Australia at one of these days. The next ink she sent me is by Lamy, and this is Vibrant Pink. And the naming of this ink is very well suited. It is a vibrant pink. I do think it sits more on the red pink side versus the blue pink side, in that it is pretty firmly in the pink and not leaning anywhere towards like fuchsia or magenta. And it is a nice legible pink color that is still very pink looking and not super red looking. I like it. Flow wise is really nice, and she did mention in her letter that she loved the flow of this ink as well. So I'm really excited to play around with this one. I may use this in February actually, because this is like a really great Valentine's pink, and that it is pretty like neutral pink. It's very pink. I'm running out of pink descriptors, but it's pink, y'all. Okay, it's pink. Next up, she sent another Colorverse ink, and this one is Icy Moon, and I think this one is a shimmer ink, so I'm going to go ahead and try to shake this one up a little bit. Ooh, this is really pretty. Okay, so this is kind of like a gray blue. Reminds me a lot of the Diamine Purple Ink Vents Blizzard color, but a bit darker. I'm not sure on the color of shimmer in this yet. I couldn't really tell by the bottom of the vial, so I'll have to wait to see what the shimmer color is once it's dry. But base of this is a lovely darker cool blue gray. Really pretty. Flow wise is pretty nice too. It's not super dry, or not really dry at all. It's just pretty average, and I'm really again excited to see what this dries down to, because I think it's going to shade, and if it has shimmer too, it's just going to be a winner. Next up, she sent an ink by Vinta, and this is Isabela 1999 Liquid Sepia, and this is another shimmer ink, and the shimmer looks like it's kind of a bronzy color. This is beautiful. It's almost like a liquid gold look to it with the shimmer and everything that it's got going on. But the base of this is definitely a nice kind of pinky beige. Kind of reminds me of skin, like Caucasian skin tones, or maybe just a lighter skin tone, but with the kind of bronzy gold champagne-y colored shimmer that this has, it is just really, really pretty and soft. Really want to compare this one actually to Van Diemen's 𝗤𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. I think that one, 𝗤𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 is going to be a bit more pink and this one's a bit more neutral, but the liquid sepia is gorgeous. One thing that I have learned about the Vinta inks is that their shimmer particles are very, very fine, so they do tend to not stick to the page. So I'll see if that happens with this one too, but in my experience from the previous Vinta inks that I've swatched, they do kind of shed their shimmer just slightly onto the page, so it kind of just makes the whole page a little bit glittery. Next up, she sent me another Robert Oster ink, and this one is called Peppermint Candy. And it is a shimmer ink. It looks like the shimmer is kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like a minty color. Maybe that's going to match the green that looks like it's going to be inside the bottle. Okay, this ink is so lovely and so green, and it's so pretty. If you're new to this channel, just know that green inks and brown inks are probably my favorites. But if you're not new, you know this ink is right up my alley. The color of this is a lovely deep emerald green. It has a piney foresty vibe to it. It's giving Christmas tree. It's giving green jelly. It's giving holidays, okay? It's just, this is a perfect holiday ink, and Georgia, you described this as a perfect Christmas ink in your letter, and I definitely agree with you. I don't really see the shimmer popping through just yet because the ink is still wet, but the base color of this is a lovely cool toned green. It's definitely a gem tone emeraldy look to it. Really, really like this one already, and definitely think I will be inking this up in December. The last two inks she sent me are by Kuretake, which I've never tried their fountain pen ink, so I'm kind of excited about this. But the first one I believe is called, I think it's Zsolnay Green. She says it's by their Art Nouveau collection. Okay, I am here for this color. I love it. Wow. Descriptor wise, I would say this is green black, but more so like a dark foresty green. This is what I imagine. This is going to be kind of weird or nerdy, I guess. If you've ever seen the Twilight movies in Forks, Washington, how it always has that kind of like dark gray green overlay on all of the shots. This is that color. This is the color of the trees in Forks, Washington. Okay. It's just reminding me so much of Twilight right now, which is, you know, it is what it is. The color of this is absolutely lovely though. I really, really like this color. I don't know if I have anything quite like it actually, just because it looks like it's starting to sheen as well. I'll have to go through my dark greens while I wait for these to finish drying and see if I have anything that can compare to this, because I don't know if I have another color quite like this one. Okay, and then the last ink she sent me again is by Kuretake, and this is Shimbashi Iro. And wow, this is a lovely, like, deep sky blue. I actually kind of think this is very similar to the Pilot Iro Shizuku's 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗃, just slightly darker and slightly greener. This is lovely though, really, really pretty. It looks like it's going to have a little bit of shading as well, and flow wise, this just was like butter coming off of this dip pen, so I expect this to be a very well behaved ink in a pen. Really, really happy with this one too, but it is a lovely kind of like deeper sky blue, and I can definitely appreciate that because I feel like most light blues are either too light and don't have enough depth to them, but this one looks like it's going to have enough depth that it's not going to just kind of blend into the page. Okay, I'm going to let these finish drying. I will be back in a little bit and we'll do some close-ups and I'll kind of describe some of the drier swatches that I'm seeing. I just want to say, Georgia, if you're watching this, thank you so much for sending these my way. I'm definitely having a lot of fun seeing the initial swatches of these, and I'm really excited to play with a lot of them already in like drawings and then also inking them up in pens. I also want to say, Georgia, those Tim Tams didn't even make it 2 hours in my house. They were so good, so thank you for sending those. But I'll see the rest of you guys in a minute. Okay, I am back. Everything has finished drying. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and we'll do a little bit of like color describing. So first up, we had Sailor Ink Studios 464, which is an ink that I've played with before, and it is still just as lovely. It's a beautiful, nice, neutral teal, in that it's a bit blue and a bit green, and it has this lovely red sheen. It's not a vibrant red sheen, like a shiny metallic red sheen. It's very matte, and it does pop through variously in writing, but it's not super strong. It's not like some of the other Sailor Teal inks out there. Then we had Diamine's Aurora Borealis, again, another ink that I actually really have enjoyed. My first experience with this was with Priscilla's ink swap that she did with me, and it's still just as lovely now. I do love that this one is a bit deeper, and also, Georgia, that this was your first bottle of ink, because it's a great first bottle to have. Next, she sent me Robert Oster's Motor Oil, which again is a lovely, lovely brown black ink. This one did not sheen as much as some of my other swatches, so I do think the new Sanzen paper takes away a bit of the sheen for this one, but the color is a lovely deeper brown black, even just a really dark brown. Love this one too, really, really great. Next, she sent me Robert Oster's Sydney Darling Harbor, and I am pleasantly surprised with how this shaded down. It reminds me a lot of, again, the Airbon ink or Airbin ink that I think is Verdigris, but it also kind of reminds me like a darker version of Diamine's Celadon Cat, maybe even like Waringel's Dorothy, Ferris Wheel Press's Storied Blue, but this one sits a bit more on the blue edge than the green one, so really, really happy with this one too. It's a lovely, lovely shader. Then she sent me Robert Oster's Romeo and Juliet, and she requested that I compare this to Robert Oster's Wind, and as a dried swatch, I can confirm that Robert Oster's Wind is much more vibrant than this one. It has a bit more of a saturation in the blue department and also in the pink shading. So Romeo and Juliet is a bit of a softer, more muted version of Wind. So if you like things that are a bit more dusty, a bit more gray toned, Romeo and Juliet is the winner there. If you like things that are a bit more saturated, a bit more, I guess, colorful, I would say Wind is a better choice. Then she sent me Dominant Industries Evening. This is such a lovely light lilac-y color. This is perfect for painting petals and flowers. It's also really great for the name that it described. Like I mentioned, it is definitely a great sunset-y, dusk evening color. Very, very nice. Next, she sent me Colorverse Hubble, and this dried down actually a bit more pink than I was expecting. So initial swatching, this was very red in that it had a bit more of a blue tone to it, but as it dried, it turned a bit more pink. It does have little hints of kind of green, like a matte green sheen in the edges here. I'll have to play around with this one some more and see if I can get that green sheen to pop out in writing, because if so, that would be really, really pretty, and I think this would be really great kind of wintry red ink. Next, she sent me an ink by Collection Traced, which is a brand I've never heard of before, and this one's called Wushan Misty Mountain. Still giving me Lord of the Ring vibes for some reason, but the color of this is very close to the Sailor Chroma Shader, and it's actually close to Manyo's Hinoki, so I was wrong. It's not the Yurameku ones, it's a Manyo, and it's beautiful. It has this kind of gray, green, pink kind of look to it. The haloing is definitely like a darker green color. Very, very pretty. And I do like this one. I do like that this one is legible in that it is a bit darker than some of the Sailor inks that are a bit lighter chroma shaders that are harder to read in writing. Next, she sent me Colorverse Ganymede. This is beautiful. It reminds me a lot of Dominant Industries Downpour, but lighter and with better shading. This is kind of like a soft purple gray, and it is a bit dry based on the dip swatch I did, so I feel like it would be a bit dry in a pen, but that doesn't really bother me at all. But the color of this is stunning in that it is that kind of purple gray tone, but it's still legibly purple gray. Then she sent me Sailor Ink Studios 173, and I really wanted to do a big swatch of this one because she mentioned in her letter that it was a chroma shader, and yeah, you got it right, Georgia. This is definitely a chroma shader. This is beautiful. It's kind of this yellow orange to this baby pink chroma shade thing that's going on over here in the swatch. And then in the writing, it's definitely showing up a bit more of like a mix of everything kind of being corally looking. The shading did come through in the Fude like broader writing here, and also in my doodles of the leaves. But I think in a medium, maybe even a fine, extra fine, you'd probably just get this beautiful coral color and not get as much of the range of shading that is in over here. But this is surprisingly beautiful. I was definitely surprised with this one. Then she sent me Tono and Limbs, which is another brand that I have not been able to play with yet. And this is Shimane. This is a lovely, nice kind of fuchsia-y pink color. She described it as raspberry, and I think it's a great descriptor for this one, that it is a very raspberry pink, maybe raspberry red even in some areas. On camera, it's coming off a bit more pink, and in person, it's a little bit more red. But it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the other Tono and Limbs she sent me is Aichi, and this is still very vibrant. So initially when I swatched it, I talked about how neon purple it was, how bright purple, and as it's dried, it's still bright purple. It's not as bright, but it's still got that vibrant purple look to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. Next, she sent me Robert Oster's Melbourne Tram Green. I still like this one. It does remind me still of the Kobe's Ogo Farm Green in that it's kind of grassy, kind of springy green. It's lovely, and I like the shading in this, how it goes from like this kind of yellow green to a bit more of a darker muddy green color. Very, very nice. Then she sent me Lamy's Vibrant Pink, and this has this yellow matte sheen on it. I don't know if the camera is really going to pick that up very well, but the color of this is a nice bright pink. I don't want to say it's hot pink, but it's almost hot pink. Like, it just needs a little push and then it's hot pink, but it's beautiful. Absolutely great pink color. Then we had Colorverse's Icy Moon, and the shimmer on this is blue one direction, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it's like pink another direction, because I can see pink from my view, and on camera it's showing very silver. Very cool. This makes me very excited for the Colorverse ink vent this year. Oops. Because I'm hoping we're going to get some inks like this in the ink vent that have like the dual chroma shading shimmers. I don't know. I just really think this is a beautiful, beautiful ink. Then we had I almost said Diamonds. Vinta's Isabela 1999 Liquid Sepia. This really does remind me a lot of Van Diemen's 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. It is a nice Caucasian-y beige color with this champagne-y bronze looking shimmer. This is stunning. This is beautiful. I think pages of this would be really great for like a wedding journal if you're wanting to write any kind of calligraphy with like names for wedding invitations or anything like that. This is beautiful, beautiful ink. Then we had Peppermint Candy, sorry, by Robert Oster. Still love that this one is so Christmassy. The shimmer is definitely a minty green color, and the base of this is a lovely blue emerald green. Very, very nice. Definitely think this might be on my December list for my currently inked. And then we ended off on two Kuretake inks, which again is another brand of inks I haven't really been able to play with. The first one was, I think it's Zsolnay green, and I did confirm. I flipped through my entire swatch book of green inks. I have nothing like this. The closest one I had was Monarca's Mangler, but that one does not have the black sheen that this one has. I also thought it might be close to Three Oysters Namasan, but that one is much more green. So I love getting another ink that I've never got anything like before. So thank you, Georgia. This is definitely a fun one to add. And then we ended off with, I think it's Shimbashi Iro, and this is a lovely sky blue that's a bit deeper with a lovely little matte red sheen going on. Kind of reminds me of Robert Oster's River of Fire, but not as green, like not as teal, but this is another really, really lovely color. All in all, I'm really happy with these inks. This is a great selection of colors. I love that each one of them has either a little bit of a property going on to them or just is a really great ink altogether. So thank you, Georgia, for sending such a great variety. I definitely want to try some more of the Tono and Limbs inks, and definitely want to try some more of the Kuretake inks, so I may be on the hunt for getting samples of those if I can. But I'm really, really happy with the group that she sent me. Again, Georgia, if you're watching this, thank you so much. Thank you for the care package you sent with this, and thank you for swapping with me. This has been such a fun time. As for the rest of you, again, thank you guys so much for watching. for hanging out with me while I swatch some inks, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.